All right, let's just jump right in. Today's explainer is all about fundamentally rethinking how organizations actually survive and thrive when the heat is on. Welcome. We're taking a really hard look at the actual architecture of your workplace today, and we're going to dismantle some of the absolute biggest myths out there about corporate change. Think about your own workplace for a sec. When a major crisis hits, let's say a total supply chain collapse or a really sudden regulatory audit, do you rely on some heroic leader working 80 hours a week to save the day? Or do you rely on a resilient system that just automatically adapts? For most places, it's definitely the former. And you know that is exactly why most change initiatives completely vanish into thin air the second the pressure gets turned up. It's a complete paradigm shift from what we used to do. It's no longer about just managing episodic disruptions. It's about building continuous adaptation right into your company's DNA. In the past, companies treated change like an event, right? You have a problem, you run a special project to fix it, you celebrate, and boom, you go back to normal. But in today's environment, that normal literally doesn't exist anymore. We have to design organizations that can learn and adjust constantly without just falling apart at the seams. We're grounding this entire explainer in Chapter 1 of Suleman Anwar's absolutely incredible book, Organizational Development, Designing Adaptive, Ethical, and Learning Organizations. This text is a real game changer because it directly attacks the category confusion around how we actually go about fixing broken systems. It treats organizational development, or OD, as a hard science of system design, rather than just some soft HR initiative. So here's our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll look at surviving the new normal. Then we'll clarify what OD actually is. Third, we'll break down the OD process engine. Fourth, we'll do a reality check on the Pakistani context. And finally, we'll explore some sector strategies for OD. All right, let's start with part 1, surviving the new normal and moving beyond episodic change. When you actually look at the pressures of this new normal, it becomes pretty obvious that you can't just slap a new software tool on a broken process and call it a day. We are dealing with persistent uncertainty, AI fundamentally reshaping who has decision-making authority, and really intense governance pressures. And the stakes? They are higher than ever. If your structural design is poor, the costs today are incredibly magnified. You simply can't train your way out of a badly designed workflow. Moving right along to part 2, what OD actually is, demystifying the discipline. So here's the absolute crucial point to take away. OD is a behavioral science discipline focused on intentional architecture. Notice the phrasing here, system-wide. That means if you have a reoccurring quality control issue, you don't just blame the floor worker. You have to look at how the workflow, the reward system, and the management structure are all interacting to cause that error over and over again. It's planned, it's evidence-based, and most importantly, it involves reinforcement. It's super important to draw some boundaries here because OD gets confused with other things all the time. For starters, OD is not project management. A project manager might install a new software system on time and perfectly under budget, but if no one knows how to use it and it absolutely tanks your customer service, well, the project succeeded, but the organization failed. And OD is definitely not expert consulting, where an outsider just drops a massive 100-page report on your desk and walks away. OD focuses on building your internal capability so you can actually solve your own problems long after the practitioner has left the building. I absolutely love this quote from Anwar because it totally grounds our understanding of all this. He writes, "An organization does not become ethical by slogans, adaptive by urgency, or intelligent by data. It becomes so when truth is safe to speak and change is designed into daily work." We really need to start thinking like architects who intentionally design feedback loops instead of just acting like cheerleaders chanting slogans. Okay, part 3, the OD process engine, which is essentially a scientific flow. This logic sequence right here, it's non-negotiable. It protects organizations from jumping the gun on premature interventions or just making superficial cosmetic changes. You don't just jump straight into a huge restructuring just because the CEO has a gut feeling. You follow a strict scientific flow, entering and contracting, diagnosis, intervention design, and finally evaluation and institutionalization. Zooming in on step 1, entering and contracting is way more than just signing a fee agreement. This is where ethics and truth-telling are officially safeguarded before the real work even begins. Think about it. If a sponsor demands that a diagnosis only validates what they already want to hear, or if they secretly plan to punish employees who speak up during interviews, the OD process stops dead in its tracks right here. Contracting builds the protective governance you need to allow actual, real change to happen. Next up is diagnosis. And listen, diagnosis is not about pointing fingers or finding out who to blame. It's a highly collaborative effort to uncover the root conditions that are repeatedly producing a specific problem. It's not a top-down audit done to the organization. It's an inquiry done with the organization. You're gathering real data to test hypotheses about why the system is behaving exactly the way it is. And you literally cannot forget the final step, institutionalization. Without this, your organization will just snap right back into its old, comfortable habits the second a crisis hits. You have to actively hardwire the change into performance reviews, your daily meeting cadences, and your decision-making rights. Basically, if you don't reinforce it, it's not going to last. All right, part 4, time for a reality check, looking specifically at the Pakistani context. Let's bring this powerful theory down to earth for a minute. In Pakistan, these aren't just random hurdles, they are very specific design realities that an OD architect has to carefully navigate. You frequently see really high founder centrality in family-owned businesses, intense cyclical macroeconomic volatility, and a high power distance culture where employees are genuinely afraid to speak up to their bosses. A massive feature of this context is the heavy reliance on informal coordination. Imagine a really fast-growing textile SME, where basically every major decision is made via informal WhatsApp messages or just quick chats in the hallway. In the early days, that brings incredible speed. But as the business scales up, that same agility becomes the exact reason your orders are suddenly delayed. The founder literally becomes a bottleneck because there are no formal routines. So OD steps in right here to design systems that preserve that speed, but without sacrificing reliability. Finally, part 5, sector strategies for OD. It is honestly fascinating how universally applicable OD actually is across totally different battlegrounds. Look at banking. The pressure there is all about digital compliance and trust. OD helps align that fancy new digital app with actual internal risk governance, so it's not just a shiny front for a completely broken back office. In textiles, where it's all about export competitiveness, OD builds continuous improvement routines right on the factory floor. And in the public sector, where legitimacy is the name of the game, OD redesigns decision rights so performance issues can be addressed without just finding a scapegoat. When you actually do this right, when you follow the behavioral science, contract for the truth, diagnose the system properly, and actually institutionalize the routines, you hit these 3 core strategic outcomes. You aren't just surviving whatever the latest macroeconomic shock is, you are actively building a learning engine that feeds on it. You get drastically better performance, way stronger legitimacy, and a massively improved capacity to learn. So I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought to chew on regarding your own workplace architecture. Think about it. Are you relying on catchy slogans and individual heroics? Or are you actually ready to design a truly adaptive, ethical, and learning organization? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope you can take some of these insights back and apply them with your own teams.